Hi everyone, I came across a story about a week ago that's about 5 weeks old now, which says to me it didn't get a lot of press, and sure enough, it didn't. Um, Navy orders laser weapon systems from Lockheed Martin. So laser weapon systems, that's the next step. In the article, it says Naval Sea Systems Command has awarded Lockheed Martin a contract for the Surface Navy Laser Weapon System. The deal, announced Friday by the Department of Defense, so this was back at the end of January, is valued at more than $150 million under the terms of a cost plus incentive fee contract. $150 million. So I thought to myself, that must be a lot of lasers. That must be $1 million a laser, something like that. I thought that would be reasonable. And then I read the next paragraph. The contract taps Lockheed Martin's Acolyte Corps to develop, manufacture, and deliver 2 test units in fiscal 2020. One unit will go to the USS Arleigh Burke, a guided missile destroyer, while the other will be used for land-based testing, the Pentagon said. $75 million a piece for freaking lasers. Are they going to mount them on top of the heads of sharks and go full Dr. Evil? This is at the time where Trump's budget cuts cut 33% from the EPA, 7% from Medicare, 22% from Medicaid and Obamacare provisions, and 27.4% to SNAP, food stamps. So at the same time as they are literally taking the food out of poor people's mouths, they're giving Lockheed Martin $75 million a piece for freaking lasers. When I read this story and digested it, first of all, I started laughing. I thought, this is just pathetic. This is ridiculous. Because I immediately thought of this. And if you're not aware of what it is, you're probably under the age of about 32. But the Strategic Defense Initiative had another more popular name that was coined by the media. And it was Ronald Reagan's Star Wars system. Now, his Star Wars system was basically he wanted to put lasers in space and missiles that were circling the Earth, so they didn't have a base, so they couldn't be fired upon, and they could just direct the missile. I'm not making this up, I promise you, if you weren't aware of this. And so lasers in space that would knock out any intercontinental ballistic missiles that were fired upon America from Russia, and missiles going around the Earth constantly in orbit that could then be redirected if ever they needed to be fired. Now, none of his generals and nobody in the military thought this was possible. Nevertheless, estimates are up to $209 billion in the 80s was spent on this Star Wars program, which is probably worth about $450 billion now, if you account for inflation. $75 million a piece for lasers, while you're literally taking food out of poor people's mouths. 32 to 50% of households live in poverty. The estimates range, so between 1 in 3 and 1 in 2 households in America is in poverty right now, depending on which research you look at. 60% of households can't afford a $1,000 emergency. But there's enough for 2 lasers at $75 million a piece. The F-35 fighter jet, which at the moment estimates coming at $1.2 trillion for a plane that essentially was meant to be everything to everybody. It was meant to be able to bomb everything. It was meant to be surveillance. It was meant to be, all planes rolled into one. And what is essentially now a jack of all trades and master of none and people are coming out and saying it's a dog of a plane. 1.2 trillion. So you can bet your bottom dollar that's going to be 1.5 trillion minimum by the time it's finished, because of all the problems that it's facing at the moment. $1.5 trillion could wipe out student debt. But instead of that, it's going towards an F-35 fighter plane that I assume has been made because they looked at Independence Day and thought it was a documentary and thought they were going to get invaded by space aliens. Because the amount of planes they're buying could take on every other country in the world combined. It's as simple as that. I highly doubt Washington intends to buy 2,443 of these planes, these F-35s. That's from one article. In a decade's time, the United States plans to have 15 times as many modern fighters as China and 20 times as many as Russia. And this article is from 2011. So this is only a few years away. It might have changed since then, but 2,443 planes. You're going to struggle to get the pilots to fly them. And I started thinking about this, and I started thinking, what's the end game here? Because you can't call this defence. This isn't defence. This is way more than defence. And I saw this article yesterday. I saw it. This is from last week. Russia threatens our ability to dominate. US General to Congress. So they're not even fucking hiding it now. It's global domination. That's the aim. And then I saw this map. General Joseph Votel, head of the US Central Command, CENTCOM, briefed the House and Armed Services Committee on Tuesday, so this was last week, on the efforts against Islamic State and the wars in Syria, Afghanistan and Yemen, all of which fall under the purview of CENTCOM, the only geographic combatant command executing active combat operations, Votel pointed out. Now, that sounds like a lie to me to start off with, because there's US AFRICOM on that map, as you can see, up there. Now that will cover Libya and the latest bombing target of America, Niger. And then I started thinking, why are America bombing Niger? And I found this. Uranium provides 72% of Niger's export proceeds. So not only is America paying $75 million a piece for 2 lasers and spending $1.5 trillion on a plane that is not needed, many people say isn't working at the moment, although they probably will fix it, let's face it, and it will cost even more. But now they're trying to get all the uranium out of Niger. I mean, that can be the only... Why else would they be bombing Niger? They will make the excuse that it's the war on terror because of the Patriot Act. Thank you, George Bush. At the bottom of that article, though, the CENTCOM chief also argued that Moscow and Tehran are seeking an end to the Syrian war because they are pouring billions of dollars in aid into Damascus. So, one statement is, Russia want to end the war. Yet in the same hearing, he argued that Russia has to admit it's not capable of that, or that it doesn't want to play a role in ending the Syrian conflict. Well, which is it? Either they do want to end it, or they don't want to end it. So they're not even hiding it now. It's global domination. 57.9% of all our global arms sales in 2016 were from America. 57.9%. China isn't on that because China's a bit secretive, although they have got, it's between 7 and 9 arms companies, arms manufacturers that would crack the top 100 in the world. So that might bring USA's global arms sales down to 50%. Certainly close to half of all the weapons in the world are made in America. I always thought that America was turning into just a giant weapons factory, and this has now confirmed it. Meanwhile, they're literally taking food out of poor people's mouths. It's negating the social programs that are desperately needed in America that the rest of the world has and pumping it into the military. This is why I am so vehement in saying, got to get money out of politics. Just got to. I mean, it's bad enough in the UK. You'll notice the UK was second on that list for global arms exports. It's bad enough over here. But at least we've got hope now. We've got hope because the next election, things are going to change dramatically. Dramatically when Corbyn gets in, as you probably saw from my last video. It needs the same change in America. It needs the same change. And the worrying thing is, it's not happening. You've got to get somebody in who isn't a military interventionist. You've got to get somebody in who won't be diverting, what is it, 57% of discretionary spending now towards the military for war. You know, it just shows how the Democrats just don't give a flying crap about you. If you live in America, they don't give a shit. They just don't care. You can't say Trump is a madman. We've got to get him out of office. And then the very next week, give him an extra $80 billion a year for war. You just can't do that. And how the press aren't screaming about this right now is just proof that they're complicit in it. It's just proof that it is. You're not going to hear any anti-war sentiments from the New York Times and the Washington Post. We all know about Bezos and his contract, $600 million contract with the CIA now. It's really depressed me, this story has. It really has. And it all started with me laughing as well at the stupidity of paying $75 million each for a freaking laser. I really hope this turns around. I will continue doing what I do. I really want to continue doing this and trying to get the word out and trying to get people to understand that this partisan politics that people have been driven into right now and speaking like we and them when it comes to the Democrats versus the Republicans, it has to fucking stop. It has to change. People have to know that is exactly what the establishment want them to do. It's exactly what it's designed to do. You might as well be living in 1984. You might as well. It is an Orwellian state right now. And the UK is not much better. I will admit that. We're not much better. But at least there's hope for us. At least the next election we know that there's a damn good chance that things are going to drastically change. I haven't got that same hope for America at the moment, I'm afraid. I really, really hope that changes. I'll do my best to get things to do what I can. Yeah, so I'm sorry it was a shit, sad video. I was hoping it was going to be a happy one when I read that story and something I could take the piss out of, but I just can't. That's sad. That's giving an already overblown military-industrial complex $150 million for 2 freaking lasers, and then taking food out of poor people's mouths at the same time. Yeah, sorry it was a sad video. Please subscribe, please hit the bell. Thank you to all the patrons who support me. If you can, please support me and I'll carry on doing this hopefully as much as possible, and the videos will increase. I'm really enjoying this and I want to continue, so thank you very much for your support. And until next time, and I really mean this after this video, peace.